Hello and welcome back here in the Bella Center hallways in our behind-the-scenes little studio where we will, during the coffee break of the third day of the ESOT 2019 Congress, have a very, very special broadcast going on here. If you're watching this live, then you are part of our 24-hour-a-day broadcast on ESOT's educational platform, Transplant Live. If you're watching this in recording or on YouTube, that means you should still hop over to ESOT-transplantlive.org to be able to access all the different recordings of the sessions here at the Congress. Because we have just been watching the state-of-the-art session number 5, which was titled DCD, Pushing the Boundaries. And in few minutes, Franz and Phillip Dutkovski will join me here in the studio, and they will take questions from our Chinese audience. Because currently we have 4 different locations connected with us, kindly sponsored by Roche Pharmaceuticals. Roche has been a kind sponsor or supporter of the broadcast throughout many years, and currently we have 4 cities connected, basically being Beijing, Wuhan, Guangzhou and Zhengzhou. And soon we will connect to all these different locations and let that audience over there, first of all, check in with them, how they are participating, and have them ask questions to our speakers here. But before we do that, we have Professor Bingy, who is the chairman of the Chinese Transplantation Association, and we've just learned about the situation in DCD here in Europe. And he will give us a short introduction about the progression of DCD in the Chinese side of things. So I'm really looking forward to that. Obviously, we're covering a few minutes before the speakers get from room A2 to here in the studio. And during that time, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that today is a very special day. Today we are truly connecting all transplantation professionals from around the world, because not only are we currently connected to Asia, but later today here in Copenhagen, early in the morning in the Americas, we will connect to the Stanford University School of Medicine. And to give you an understanding about what's going to happen there tonight, let's have a look at a short introduction.
Imagine what could happen if we can match the most inspiring minds in transplantation with the incredible drive for change in Silicon Valley. On the third day of the ESOT 2019 Congress here in Copenhagen, we're going to make an attempt to truly connect the global transplantation community. At that moment, in the early morning, there will be a meeting at the Stanford University School of Medicine, together with a meeting here at ESOT Congress in Copenhagen. We will connect those 2 meetings virtually, and we will have speakers in Stanford talking to an audience in Copenhagen. And all of this will be broadcasted live right here on Transplant Live. So you should make sure that you're a part of that as well. The meeting is titled Using Research as an Agent for Change, and we will learn how you can use the latest insights and results and use them to make an even greater impact on society. So make sure you set a reminder, an alarm, and invite all your friends and colleagues to join us virtually right here at Transplant Live on Tuesday, September 17th, 6:30 Copenhagen time.
Yes, so that is something that is going to happen later tonight, and I hope you can be part of that as well. That session will be broadcasted both on ESOT Transplant Live, our 24-hour live stream, and on YouTube here as well, so you might be able to join in. As you can see, I'm now joined by Franz and Phillip Dutkovski, both from Zurich, and both just walking off stage from the room A2. Congratulations on the great session, Franz.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It was mainly the speakers.
Yes, but you have designed this session together as well.
Together with David Arias, yes.
Yes. So what we're going to try to do is connect to our locations in China, because if we can connect to our hub in Beijing, we will have Professor Shi Bingy there, the chairman of the Chinese Transplantation Association. And after learning from the state here in Europe, He would now like to give us a little introduction on the progression of DCD on the Chinese side of market. So, Professor Shi Bingy, can you hear me?
To enhance personal experience, networking and learning.
It looks like we are not yet talking to the Chinese connection, so as we can see, they are broadcasting a promo video over there. There the image is changing, and let's see if we can get Beijing up on the screen and see is Professor Shi Bingy, if he's ready to give us an update.
I'm ready.
Because I'm pretty curious to learn whether there are big differences between the Chinese side of things. Yes, Professor Shi Bingy. Good morning, good afternoon, we should say.
Good afternoon or good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to meet you here in video. This is Beijing, China, and this is Dr. Shi Bingy speaking. Now let me introduce the progress of organ donation and transplantation in China in brief. Since 2010, when the pilot of the voluntary deceased owner organ donation being launched, nation have rapidly developed in China. According to the recent data from the China Human Organ Donation Management Center, by October the 31st, 2018, there had been accumulatively 20,385 deceased organ donations with 57,905 solid organ donations in the mainland China. In 2007, the total number of organ donations were 5,146, increased by 26 compared to the donation in 2016. Currently, China has the largest number of organ donations in Asia, and it is the second only to the USA in the world. The organ donation coverage rate has increased from 0.03% per million population in 2010 and 3.67 per million population in 2017, increased by 121 times. With efforts in the past 10 years, China's organ donation work has made great progress. However, the quality of the organ donation is still far below the actual clinical needs. According to the National Blood Purification Information Registration System, there were 521,000 dialysis patients in the country by 2016, but only 9,464 patients actually received kidney transplantation in the following year. According to the data from the Chinese Scientific Registration System of Renal Transplantation, CIRKT, which means only 1 out of 55 dialysis patients was undergone kidney transplantation in China. The supply and the need ratio was only 1 to 55. Already tell us that organ donation in China still has a huge potential for future development. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Professor Shi Bingy. Thank you for giving us an update. And if you're just joining us on YouTube, we are now live connected with the ESOT 2019 Congress here in Copenhagen to 4 different locations in China. And you've just heard Professor Shi Bingy, the chairman of the Chinese Transplantation Association, giving us an update on the progression of DCD in China. Thank you very much. Now I understand, would you like to kick off our interactive Q&A with a first question to Professor Ima?
Yes, I'd like to read.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Professor Franz Emil. Glad to meet you here. I noticed that you are the initiator of the topic DCD, push the boundaries. So what would you think the current boundaries of European donation after cardiac death are? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, and congratulations to all your activities. It's a pleasure to join you in China. I think it's a very important topic in Europe, and the number of deceased donors could be really increased by those DCD programs all over Europe. And I think that's the most important issue we have, actually, to get all the countries involved and to adhere to ethical guidelines in this context.
Because would you say the ethical boundary limitations is currently the biggest boundary when you designed the session and you said push the boundaries? Is it mainly about the ethical side of things?
That was one of the key messages. That's the reason why we were so happy to have this survey from Europe. Actually, different countries have different modalities, which is mainly based on legal aspects and on the perception of DCD donation within Europe.
Yeah, because you say medically and technically we are ready to work further. Well, we've heard a great introduction by that as well. Yeah, so it's mainly legally, ethically pushing for it.
Absolutely, and the awareness at the level of the hospital is crucial to bring up a DCD program in Europe.
All right, well, thank you. And now we would like to make a round virtually through China and connect with the different locations and get questions. Let's take one question at a time from each location. And the first location I would like to connect to is Guangzhou. Are you there? Can you hear me? Yes, they are. Hi, welcome, welcome. Glad you're with us as well. What would you like to ask, and to whom? We currently have no audio from Guangzhou. I don't know if that's on your side. You get a new microphone, I see, on the table.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
This is better. Yes, it's still very soft,
okay.
but yes, now we can hear you. Can you please try again?
I have questions. What is the current status of prevention strategy of DCD donor-derived infection?
大概有前面的时候是有什么问题？暂停。
Well, I'm afraid the question is not coming through, but luckily we did prepare. So let me pass the question to you, Professor Dutkovski. Because what would you say, you've explained in your talk the role of machine perfusion, and you basically say put all DCD organs on the machine just to read the new biomarker. Well, actually not new, but you introduced old research. What does that mean for expanded criteria donation? What is the influence of these new opportunities on that?
It means that you basically define new all expanded criteria, because we rely on a puzzle of risk parameters like donor age and recipient age and others, and I think we have to go away from that, because we are wrong in many situations, and to look inside of the cells. We need to understand what happens during the ischemic process, which is probably in most cases unavoidable, except if you go for something which in fact comes from China, and therefore interesting for China, which is called ischemia-free organ transplantation. So if you do that, then of course you don't need to assess function. But I guess it will only be in some special situations.
Because our audience in Europe or the Americas who don't know about this, how does that work? Ischemia-free
organ transplantation was developed by Professor He in China, and so that is putting donors on machines before you take out organs and continuously pump until you implant. So that's a huge logistic, but it has been done in 15 cases, human cases, and of course, let's say for steatotic livers, you avoid any ischemia and any mitochondrial injury. But I think we will see several different scenarios for several machine perfusion techniques, and we need to apply rules for that. Actually, we need to develop registries for that, for I think European registries, not even national registries, and to capture the outcome, and then we can compare.
And just to go back to the question about expanded criteria donation, in your proposal of looking at the FMN marker, would you then say that's the only criteria to consider an organ or not?
No, for sure not. This is just a start. It's a start because we were lucky that this small molecule can be easily captured and it's released by mitochondria. But there are several other options which you can probably measure. It's just the start to do something.
But you would propose to move away from criteria and actually start measuring.
Yeah.
That is the approach you propose.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great. Great. Well, thank you for that. Let's see if we can connect to Zhengzhou. Zhengzhou, I should say. I've been practicing my Chinese city pronunciation. Zhengzhou, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you very clear. Hello, welcome here in Copenhagen.
用中文说可以吗？
粤语可以。
可以吧？我想问一下这个监测肾脏的这个线粒体代谢产物。FMN 对有器官灌注液对它的影响有没有大的影响？特别是在灌注获取以后的器官，不同的器官灌注液或者保存液对它的线粒体的标志物呢影响有没有显著的差异性？这是我想问的第一个问题。第二个问题，我想问一下，欧洲的这个西班牙的这个 DCD 的数量的增加，它这个供体完全是一种可控的心脏这个 DCD， 这个可控的 DCD 呢，供体的意识就是意识状态，以及是脑神经的功能，是不是在捐献前的，是不是都是完全正常的？我想问一下这个问题。
Yes, well, thank you very much for your question. Now the challenge is, and I guess this is the... does the translation come here?
Translation from Beijing.
Perfect, thank you, please.
So we've got two questions. The first question is for Dr. Phillip. Is there any influence on the FMN level if we use different kind of preservation fluid during the kidney transplantation? So the influence on the FMN level from the preservation fluid. His second question is that they just mentioned that Spain has increased the number of DCD donors, and there are from the controlled DCD. And if you have measured the conscious level and to evaluate the neural state, do you evaluate these patients on their conscious and neural state level before the donation? These are the two questions.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the translation as well. I was a bit worried that we have to go on in Chinese. Let's start with the first question, Professor Dutkovski. Is there an influence on the FMN levels by the liquids used in the perfusion?
No. Answer is easy.
The short answer is no. There's no influence. Has it been researched?
Yeah. So you can measure that basically in any transparent fluid. It needs to be acellular. So if you measure FMN or other fluorescent substances, you get disturbed by hemoglobin, bilirubin. So it needs to be an acellular perfusate, but it doesn't matter if it is HTK or IGL or UW or Belzer MPS. Doesn't matter.
So that's good to know. Practical implications. I think let's pass on the microphone to Professor Immer. Beatrice is not here, but the question was related to her. We saw an increase in DCD donation in Spain, and the question was whether the conscious levels are evaluated.
I think mainly the conscious level on the ICU increased. I think we are more and more aware that many of our patients staying on the ICU can be considered as a potential DCD donors. More and more hospitals are committed all over Europe, but also especially in Spain, and that's the reason why those numbers increase. It's a question of awareness and of considering that patients staying on ICU as potential donors.
So the answer is yes. It's measured very much.
Absolutely, and the programs have also a high acceptance in the hospital setting, and I think that's also a crucial aspect. The teams in the hospital are really committed to assist and to help in detecting DCD donors.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and
thank you.
And thank you, Joe, for this great question.
Okay, sorry. Can we just briefly translate the answer to our experts?
Of course. Yes.
We have a brief
A little bit. 第一个问题是我们这样的细胞的保存液是不会影响 FMN 的水平的，主要是我们在这个液体里面不要有这个细胞的就其他细胞的存在。另外呢，可能不要有过多的胆红素，这才会对它进行影响。但总体来说，我们不同的保存液对它是没有影响的。第二个问题呢，虽然 Beatrice 教授今天没有在这里，但是目前我们的确在欧洲这种在捐献之前衡量供体的意识，对它进行一个评估，或者对它神经方面进行评估的这种意识正在增强。我相信我们在 ICU 里面有在做，我们有相关的团队，所以总体来说答案是有的，有这样的评估。
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is a great team effort like this. Next up, I would like to connect to Wuhan. I don't know if we can pull those up on the screen and see the crowd over there. Hello, Wuhan. Can you hear us?
Hi, how are you?
We're great. Thank you. We're glad to connect with you.
Okay. I have a question for Dr. Phillip. Actually, I read most of paper around the perfusion. And this is the first time I heard the data regarding to FMN. I wonder when can we see a paper regarding to the FM data? This is the first question. And also I have several other questions.
Okay, we do one by one. I'll give you a second question in a minute. Let's answer this first. The people are looking for the scientific resources on the FMN foundings.
That's a good question. So we work on this since 4 years, and the first publication comes in Annals of Surgery November issue. Human livers measured FMN. And the next paper is submitted about all the basic background and will hopefully come end of the year.
But if I was listening correctly, you also mentioned that the core, the basic science behind this is actually quite old. You literally said, this is old news, we have forgotten.
Yeah, true, of course. It is known by biologists, by mitochondrial experts, but not from liver experts, and as machine perfusion was not in the focus. To be honest, 10 years ago, it suddenly showed up now because we have the problem of extreme sick patients and very marginal grafts, and we need to enter new pathways, therefore.
Yeah. I was standing next to a member in the audience here who were looking at your story as well, and he was wondering, he noticed that you don't present like I have 500 cases that happen this. How far are you in the broader validation of these mechanisms?
So we measured that in 54 cases, which we present in the Annals paper, but at the moment I guess we have 70 cases, and this is not much. It needs to be validated in other centers like Robert Porter's centers. In Groningen, he has a lot of DCD on pump and in other organs. So we have good networking here on the Congress, ESOT meeting, and I think in the next year we will have data from other organs and other centers.
Perfect, perfect, thank you. Wuhan, did you also have a question for Professor Ima?
Oh, okay. Okay, may I have the second question? Based on your paper, you perfuse liver at 10 Celsius and perfuse kidney at 4. I wonder what's the reason why you choose a different temperature for different organ. Thanks.
Did you capture the question?
Not exactly. Is it about the organ procurement being from two different donors?
Yes, for actually perfuse liver at 10 Celsius, but for the kidney at 4. Why choose different temperature?
Different temperatures when you procure the organs.
Yes.
So we are. Yeah, if we do HOPE procedure, we always perform at 10 degrees for human. In previous experiments, we started in rats and pigs to perfuse livers at 4 degrees. So the reason that we have higher temperature in human was just a machine, because the machine couldn't cool down. That was the reason. And it happened that it works the same. So at the moment, for human livers, we stay at 10 degrees, and it's not clear, is that better, is that worse, but the outcome is good. And I think the key message is you need to be below the Arrhenius breakpoint temperature, which is 14 degrees. If you are below that breakpoint, then it's always hypotherm, and I personally don't think that it has advantages or disadvantages. So we adjust for the trial in Europe, HOPE trial, a temperature between 8 and 12 degrees.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And may I ask another question?
Well, okay, go in. Last question. Do you have a question for Professor Immer as well?
It's okay, no.
Sorry. So this time, I think I still want to ask Dr. Okay, may I?
Yes, go.
Oh, okay. The next question is: HOPE can inhibit CUF cell in liver, which decrease liver acute rejection. But how mitigate kidney acute rejection?
You mean if we have an influence on downstream immune pathways? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a strong impact on that, but and we show that also experimentally in human livers. We don't see actually rejection in many liver recipients. So rejection is in principle not the problem. So therefore, I think we have to evaluate that further. But based on the mechanism which we also published, we think we have a strong effect on the immune system and also on the biliary tract, but that has to be evaluated further.
All right. Thank you very much, Wuhan. And as a final stage, I'd like to swing back to Beijing and offer them the microphone to ask questions to our speakers right here. Beijing, can you hear me? Are you there?
Hello, this is from Beijing again. We have many questions based on the 3 presentations, but as time is limited, I have 2 short questions. The first question is that according to first presentation, there are 3 categories of the DCD. My question is, I want to confirm the both DCD, control and uncontrolled. From the first presentation, I think the uncontrolled DCD from the controlled DCD after CPR failure. Is that right? This is the first question. The second question is that about I'm an assessment for the liver transplantation. What about the pathology assessment? There are some questions. There are some situations, for example, if the metabolic imaging is negative and the pathology is positive, can we use the organ? And in the other way, pathology is negative, metabolic imaging is positive, can we use the organ? I mean that there are 2 ways to evaluate the graft. How to use the both way to evaluate the graft and to decide the organ we can use or not.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your 2 questions. We'll answer them first. Let's start with the first question about controlled and uncontrolled DCD.
Yeah, it's according to the Maastricht classification, and as you mentioned, uncontrolled is always a failed cardiac resuscitation outside or inside the hospital, and the controlled DCD donation is related to a therapy withdrawal on ICU. So that's the reason why it's controlled. You can time it compared to the uncontrolled, where it's unexpected and it's at the end of the day a failed resuscitation. That's correct.
And when you talk about the Maastricht classification, is that a mainly European context or is this broadly international? I can imagine our Chinese audience is not familiar with the beautiful city of Maastricht.
No, but it's the categories have been published on an international level, and that's the usual criteria we use for the classification of DCD donors, I think, worldwide.
Exactly. That's how we classify. The second question, Professor Dutkovski, is about the pathology assessment. How do we use, or you say we can get rid of that altogether?
Yeah, we very much appreciate the pathological assessment, and we use it in every liver graft, every DCD liver graft. But at the moment, we rely more on the functional measurement because the pathological assessment is only a small, very small amount of liver cells. And we can get only messages like healthy hepatocytes and the grade of steatosis, and sometimes it's completely wrong, we know that. So therefore, at the moment, we rely more on complete assessment of the function of mitochondria.
Thank you very much.
Did you have
a follow-up question?
The question from Guangzhou have some question, and they want to ask you again.
Okay, so we switch back to Guangzhou. Guangzhou, where are you? We are putting you up on the screen. There you are. Let's hope the audio has improved, because can you say good morning, good afternoon to us to see if we can hear you?
Okay. Let's listen.
It's still very soft.
Oh, I'll ask a question.
Now you are there. Thank you very much. Yes, glad to hear you.
Hey. Oh, okay. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. What is the incidence of DDI in DCD compared with DBD? Do you think it affects the progresses? How do you think prevent?
So your question came through partly. You were talking about donor-derived infections, right? DDI?
Yeah, DDI, yeah.
And what exactly do you want to know?
What is the incidence of DDI in DCD compared with DBD?
Perfect, yes. Can we ask that to you, Professor Immer, or to you?
What is DBI?
So it's the donor-derived infections. And is there a difference to a DCD or DBD?
Donor-derived infections. I don't think that we see a difference. No, I don't think so. What do you think?
Professor Immer, what is your observation?
Yeah, we had a look in kidney transplantation, and in fact there was no difference in terms of donor-derived infections in the recipient.
Is there an increased risk? I try to understand why the question is there.
Of course, in DCD donation you have some additional manipulation with the machine which may have an impact on donor-derived infection or even manipulation-related infection. But we have a close follow-up and we didn't detect any issue, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah, there's not a single proof of contamination of the perfusion fluid, for example. But I have to say, this is all in Switzerland, or in my hands, is always hypotherm. So if you do hypothermic perfusion techniques, of course, the risk of some growth is very small, very small. It may be different in normothermic techniques, that we don't know.
Exactly, that is to be discovered. Okay, thank you, Guangzhou. Did you have another pressing question now that we have your audio fixed anyway?
No.
No?
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, officially, this also ends our coffee break time. So I would like to, one more time, very much express our thanks to Roche Pharmaceuticals for hosting and supporting this virtual connection between the Far East and us here in Copenhagen. I'd like to thank
Hello?
Yes?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Who are you and where are you?
Listen, I can have another question.
Sure. In which location are you? Can you say? In Beijing. Yeah, we see you now.
I have a question for Dr. Phillip. And as we know in the textbook, we can know that by preserving organs in low temperature, we can have a very slow metabolism. So the oxygen consumes less. But in the hope perfusion mode, how do we know that how much oxygen do we need to provide to the organ? This is the first question. Second,
let us clarify, because your question started off really clear and then near the end it got weird. So it's the difference between the slow metabolism that's observed in hypo...
No.
Okay.
I want to know how much oxygen do we need to provide to the organ during the HOPE mode?
That is clear. That came through. Thank you very much. So what about the oxygen levels in the HOPE procedure?
Very high.
Yeah.
So we use 80 kilopascal, which is very high. We know that for livers, for especially DCD livers, the metabolic need is high. So if you don't oxygenate at this level, the oxygen in the perfusate will disappear after, let's say, 1 hour. Therefore, we start with 80 kilopascal, and we don't see much levels of oxidative stress. For kidneys, that may be different. Yeah, but in livers, because they have a huge amount of mitochondria and usually 1.5 kilogram, so therefore we start with high oxygen content. And we have also no erythrocytes, so we need to perfuse with a high amount of soluble oxygen to get ischemic cells conditioned. That's the reason.
Yeah, do you think we need to provide extra oxygen during the transportation after harvesting the donor, after harvesting the organ? Do we need to provide continuous supply of oxygen to the liver? Is it better? Thank you.
This is an interesting question. In principle, of course, it makes sense to start the perfusion as early as possible, but from practical reasons, we prefer to do that endoschemically. So we leave the procurement as it is, transport the organ. We are lucky in Switzerland. The organ transport can be done in all cases within, I would say, for sure, within 6 hours. And I don't think that's a huge difference if you start after 1 hour cold storage or after 6 hours cold storage, and therefore we keep the practice, which is extremely easy, to let the organ procurement like it is, transport the organ to the center, and then apply machine perfusion in the center. That ease the things, therefore.
Yeah, so you say you do the perfusion at the recipient center?
Exactly.
Exactly, and so then there's no use to oxygenate during transportation?
Exactly, no transport of machines, but of course you can do it different. There are machines on the market which can be transported and can oxygenize during transport, but it's a high amount of logistics and also cost, and I don't think it's necessary, therefore.
But I can imagine in China the distances are much larger.
Of course, in China and US that may be different. And we have here on the ESOT also other machines which are able to perfuse and with continuous oxygenation during transport. Yeah, it's possible in the future.
Let me.
So do you think it's beneficial for the organ if we provide some substance containing extra oxygen in the perfusate while transportation, not using machine, but some kind of substance that can hold many oxygen in it?
Yeah, you mean some carriers? It is possible that this is beneficial, but it has not been investigated, so that this is unclear at the moment. I think based on our results, it's probably not needed if you do endoschemic oxygenation, but we need to evaluate that.
Is there any indication in science which could lead to the practice of the more oxygen the better, or is that not sound?
That depends, of course, from the amount of ischemia and on the temperature. So if you introduce oxygen basically to human cells or animal cells, you get some mitochondrial injury, always. So therefore, oxygenation has also a side effect.
Exactly, so you should be careful with that.
So therefore, we need to understand that fully and to measure that during perfusion.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your clear questions. Let me just do a household check, because on our 24-hour broadcast, we go back into room A1. But I must say, I'm very happy that this is all working now. Do you have to urgently be somewhere in the next 5 minutes? And you, Professor Dutkovski?
5 minutes.
Yeah? No? Can you stay?
Yeah.
Because then I'd like to open up to China. If there's anybody in any of the 4 locations who would like to take the opportunity that everything is now technically working and we are here, let us know if there's any questions. Just start waving, raise your hands, or start talking into your microphone and we'll pull you up. Anyone perhaps in Wuhan or in Guangzhou, Zhengzhou, Beijing?
Wuhan.
Yes, Wuhan. I was expecting you guys to come back. Welcome back. Yes, welcome back. Please.
Okay. I have a question for Dr. Phillip. So what's your opinion on HMP and HMP and NMP? I mean, in the next 5 to 10 years, which one which one are better or has a big marketing?
You mean comparison of normothermic versus hypothermic?
Yes, HMP and NMP.
Yeah, it's, I'm not unbiased in this question. I would say at the moment it is unclear. But as I showed, normothermic perfusion works very good in healthy organs. If organs are exposed to long ischemic periods, then you will have a problem during normothermic perfusion as in vivo and ex vivo. And therefore, I think we need to evaluate the effect of hypothermic perfusion compared to normothermic perfusion in randomized trials. And we don't have that yet. We will have the result of the first hypothermic trials in the next year. The first normothermic trial has been finished, and in future, we will have to compare it.
And you say I'm not biased, so where's your favor?
Of course, I'm a cold oxygenated guy, so I like the sun, but for livers and kidneys, I like the cold, of course.
And why? Why does that make your life easier?
Yeah, because our research shows that the injury is less if you oxygenate in the cold. So, but that has to be proven, and if you want to convince others, you need nowadays to provide randomized trials. So therefore, we will have that, I guess.
Exactly. Good. Thank you, Wuhan, for that additional question. I think with that, we kind of gonna stick to the time because our audience in China has also been sitting there very long. So let me once again thank you all in all 4 different cities. Thank you, Guangzhou. Thank you, Zhengzhou. Thank you, Wuhan. And thank you, Beijing. Especially Professor Shi Bingy, thank you for sharing the update on the progression of DCD in China and preparing that. And thank you also once again kindly to Roche Pharmaceuticals for making this all possible, hosting you guys in the 4 different cities and connecting here live with Copenhagen. Thank you, Professor Zimmer, for compiling this very interesting session of a obviously hot topic, and I think we'll be learning more from that. Thank you, Professor Dutkovski, for being with us and the very passionate talk you've delivered on stage. Now, if you're with us here on YouTube, we're soon going to turn off the broadcast here on YouTube and take you into the room A1, where a session is going on, Relight My Fire, which is all about minimizing or reducing the stress in the life of a transplantation professional. A slightly off-science topic, but I think very important. And if you want to join us in that, then please hop over to ESOTtransplantlive.org, where you can follow us for 24 hours a day. And if you are having fun with this connecting the total world of transplantation, make sure you'll be back with us at 6:30 Copenhagen time, where we have a joint session with the Stanford School of Medicine, where we have speakers in Stanford, we have speakers here in Copenhagen, and a virtual audience like yourself, all connecting that all together. So with that, I'd like to wrap up the coffee break here in Copenhagen and take you into Relight My Fire, Inspire and Drive number 3.
Of burnout is not only something to do with yourself, but also with the environment. And this is again a very nice work from the Mayo Clinic that shows what is in blue. The more you are burnout, the more you can do errors or make mistakes in your job. So it means that the environment is very important, and if you want